Learning Ships takes young people out into places where change is happening, and it gets them to meet the people responsible for the change and inspires them, raises their aspirations, gets those young people thinking about what their responsibilities are for the future, what the opportunities are for their future, and who they could be in this changing world. It's about being a citizen in Bristol and what you could do to improve what Bristol is for people growing up in Bristol, for people living in Bristol.
The Avon is the main river, and one of the chief things about the Avon is it's tidal. It's very important historically and culturally and everything else. So we're floating on high tide now, and that's what ships have done for centuries. Bristol is only where it is because that's how far you can get up the river on one tide.
You absorb your heritage from where you live. You live in Pill, you've got Pill pilots, all that sort of stuff. What we're interested in is how different does it make you if you understand what your city's history is. So we had a historian there talking about his love of history and heritage.
There was one gibbet pole there. There was a second gibbet pole just on the bank, on the Gloucestershire side. Both of them murderers. One put up 1741, the other 1761. Now both gone, but still standing when the first Ordnance Survey map was produced in 1816, 1817. Imagine yourself sitting in a classroom studying the history of the city of Bristol and its connection to the sea. First of all, the sea seems like such a long way away. You have to go all the way down the River Avon to get there. It's 7 miles of twisting, muddy stretch. Then they say to you, oh, if you're in the middle of Bristol, at any point until they paved over the River Froom, so outside the watershed, that was shipping. There was shipping all the way down the Welsh back and all the way, it was all shipping. But you have to imagine it because it's gone. If you get down here, get to Pill and then beyond and out to Avonmouth itself, it's a much easier place to use the historical imagination.
We did this project with another group and they went, yeah, it's really important, really important. And then they sat around and they thought, that ain't going to happen. It's Bristol, isn't it? And they walked off it. They just walked away from the idea that they had something to contribute to that because somebody else will sort it out.
So, I mean, Bristolians need to have a sense of how their city was built. They need to have some sort of sense of, identify with it, and to, for goodness sake, build something new and modern and futuristic. But do not throw out the spirit of the place, the germ of the place that makes it what it is. If you don't understand the history of the way this river has nourished the city, and you just kind of homogenise it, you just lose so much. You need to keep a sense of the past about you as you plan your future.
We woke up a long time ago, early on in my time, 25 years ago here. The key issue for us was the education of young people and the enabling of young people as we go on into the future to be ready and willing and anxious to be engaged in all of the things that we can do here. And you always come back to young people who are less advantaged.
People who make their dreams happen do it through goal setting. That's the hard bit. That's the bit where you were all kind of, oh, I don't like this. It's, I'd have to think, I have to do this thing where, I'm going to have to write it down. If you don't write it down, it won't happen. If you don't tell somebody, it won't happen.
Oh, these are my husbands. These are going to be all my cars. And I'm going to have all dogs. And I'm going to have an island and a big house, a swimming pool, and all the clothes in the world.
There is no money available for your dream. What does that mean? That's meant to be a tear.
I can do it.
They're gonna
So with this car,
spend their money on crack.
Are there gangs and drugs in Lawrence Weston?
It's quite a lot. Quite a lot of drugs anyway.
So the fact that you've never been on a boat down the Avon, it goes right by your doorstep. Yeah, but would you not like, it should be something that maybe while you're growing up in that region, people go out on boats?
Yeah, people should because of the long seafaring trade history of Bristol.
Junction City Dogs, you got Bell coming through as well, over.
And if you're oppressed in any way by the conditions in which you live, you need that sort of different dimension from somebody who can honestly convince you that there's more to all this than just what I'm being told.
If you look at the water, we're charging through the water, aren't we? Because the tide's coming in now. So the water is flowing into Bristol and it's getting higher and higher and higher. We're racing against it.
The money that's donated towards Learning Ships is used to fund the extras that wouldn't be afforded by a school. So a school might have a classroom, a school might have a teacher. That teacher, that classroom is now on the move.
Now the last tsunami in Bristol was 1607. It came 14 miles inland, killed off a load of livestock, an awful lot of people.
it is felt by some people that Bristol will flood once sea levels rise to a certain extent and the tides become too vast. So there are plans among some people to build either a barrage or a barrier at the bottom of the River Avon to keep all the water in the River Avon and effectively extend the floating harbour all the way from Bristol down to the sea.
So they barraged the Taff Estuary in Cardiff basically for real estate developments.
The excuse for all that development is that we're all going to drown in floods if we don't do something about it. But really it is about big business moving in on a piece of the natural environment. Before you know where you are, there'll be marinas and there'll be fancy hotel suites.
The 2050 vision just looks at what Bristol could look like in 40 years' time. It points to some particular advantages that we have that we're not mining to the full. One of them is this amazing entrance to the city, one of the best entrances to a city in the world. The 7 miles of fantastic potential that can be turned into all sorts of sporting activity, of leisure activity.
So where do you guys live?
Pill.
Pill. Oh right, so you see it all. Yeah. Well, you can't, all the history of all the pilots and things is amazing. It's very romantic about it, yes.
Because it sometimes floods where the creek is and there's a road with like loads of houses on. So I guess if climate change should happen, they just get flooded.
Design companies that are trying to build new types of houses that really kind of almost houses that will float up on the flood and stuff like that. We need to always be looking for the cleverest solution, and I think a barrage is a very old idea. There's much cleverer ways of doing stuff. You can generate power without building a barrage easily.
But
so
in the end, wouldn't a barrage be cheaper than all of these, like changing all the houses so that they're like technologically
but cheaper
more
is not.
efficient?
Yeah, I know.
But it does play a part, really.
Yeah. Well, it does. Economy, of course, yes, it does. So the city has to make decisions.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a debate with all sides represented and the value of the tides represented, which they're not at the moment. If you stop the tides going up and down, it'll change everything for nature and for landscape and stuff like that. So, but don't take my word for it. Do some research.
Make no doubt about it, this has a potential far beyond anything we've exploited in Bristol. And we won't be able to trigger it if we can't fund the basic elements of getting young people involved. So we do need a bit of support from all of our businesses to enable us to start to open these practical doors to young people. Experience of going down the river all the way on a boat out into the estuary, understanding the tides, coming back, seeing the potential. We need money to do that, and the curriculum and the funding of schools doesn't give that. And so youngsters find themselves locked in a system that I think only we in business can open up, and we must.
What about your trip up the river? This is my first time. And what's it been like? What have you spotted? What have you discovered?
There is a lot of bird animals around, like herons. Never seen them before.
Well, it's actually beautiful. I love the view.
It's really nice out here. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. It is. Like just watching the waves in the water is just so calming.
So what will you take back?
Well, I definitely think this is something that everybody should experience. So I don't think it's a good idea, like, closing it off. Like, we need the time.